So, over the last 3 weeks, we've been talking a lot about different emotions. Emotions ranging from anger to disgust, and today I want to actually finish the series out, and I want to talk about two different things. I want to talk about empathy, and I want to talk about grace. And I'm sorry, if your name is Grace, yes, I'm going to be saying Grace a lot, and all your friends are going to be like, oh my gosh, that's her name. Yeah, I get it, okay? People are named Grace. That's not what we're talking about, though. Empathy and grace. And over this series, we've actually looked at a lot of confusing things around emotions. And I don't know about you, but I'm the type of person that it takes me a little bit to recognize that I have emotions. And so this has been like a really good series for me. And everybody experiences emotions. Everybody experiences emotions, but no one is going to experience emotions just like someone else. The way I feel about something is gonna be different than the way you guys feel about something. If you told me that in 10 minutes, I have to get up on a stage and talk to 500 people, I'd be like, awesome, let's do it. That'd be so much fun. Ask me that 5 years ago, or maybe ask some of you guys that now, and we'd probably weep in the corner, like crying ourselves to sleep, right? Because that's scary. We would feel different emotions based on the situations that we're going through, because we experience these emotions differently. And so what I want to ask you, and what I want to try to figure out today, is how do we experience emotions differently, but also continue to treat people with kindness, with love, with respect? How do we actually allow people to experience love, and how do we allow people to understand that we think they're important and we value them, even though we might not have any clue what they're thinking or feeling? Thankfully for us, it's actually written in the Bible. We don't have to come up with our own answer. And so I want everybody right now to turn to 1 Peter 3, verse 8. And so if you have Bibles in your rooms, go ahead and grab one of those. If you're watching online, grab your phone. If you're in our room and you want to use your phone, that is awesome. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. Here's what it says. It says, "Finally, all of you should be of one mind. Sympathize with each other. Love each other as brothers and sisters. Be tender-hearted and keep a humble attitude." We are going to experience different emotions. We're going to experience different thoughts, different feelings, but we're called to be tender-hearted, right? To sympathize with each other, to actually treat each other well, even though we're gonna have differences of opinions, of feelings, and thoughts. So how do we do that? How do we show this thing called grace when people are just getting on our last nerves? And guys, grace, all grace really is giving someone something that they might not deserve in the moment. Giving something to someone, giving patience to someone who might not deserve it in the moment. Giving love to someone who might not deserve it in the moment. We show them grace. We show them this thing called grace when we actually put their interests and their needs, when we put others a little bit above ourselves, when we don't just focus on what we're feeling and thinking, but when we actually take time out of our day to figure out where someone else is right now and what they're feeling, and treat them with love and kindness no matter what that is. And that could sound good to you guys. That could sound like, oh, that's great. Like, you know, making other people more important than us. Like, we're just valuing others. That's great. Why does it almost feel like I have to pay the price for someone else making mistakes or being mean or just being kind of a jerk? Guys, we give grace to people because we get grace on a daily basis. God gives us grace on the reg. Seriously, how many times do we make mistakes? A lot. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I go to God, and even though, you know, as Christians, as followers of Jesus, we can go to God and we can go to him boldly and proudly, and we can stand before him because of what Jesus has done. Sometimes I go to God and I'm just like, God, I messed up again. I sorry. Like, I just feel like I'm so frustrated with myself, but he is always ready to give us grace. He's always ready to give us something that we might not deserve. A second chance, maybe. And so do you have friends like that? Do you have friends that, man, they just seem to be so angry and so mean to you right now? I don't know, maybe they had a pet pass away, right? Have you guys ever actually lost a pet? Like, that's tough to walk through, especially in middle school. And maybe they're just being mean because that's the emotion that they chose to show based off of what happened in their lives. How do we show them grace? Instead of being mean right back to them, how do we show them grace and actually help them process their loss that they're going through? Do you have a friend that is just always going like nuts and just crazy, hyper and energetic, and you actually want to sit down because they're like a really good friend to you, and you want to sit down and have a good conversation with them, and they're just not getting it? You're trying to share something with them and they're just not getting it. How can we show them grace by, instead of being like, what are you doing? You're so dumb all the time. How can we show them grace and actually just say, you know what? Hey, I would love to talk about this thing with you. Like, I really need your help. Can you just give me like 5 minutes? I really need you to be serious. How can we show people grace? By helping them, by continuing to love them, and not by just judging them or condemning them as soon as they do something wrong. Guys, we all do things wrong. And you know what? God's not waiting up in heaven, waiting to shoot bolts of lightning like, He's not gonna like destroy us every time we mess up. He's ready to offer us that grace. He's so ready to offer us that grace. And so, number one, are you ready to accept that grace? Because sometimes we live with this sense that, man, we just keep doing stuff wrong. We feel so guilty, we feel shame, and we don't recognize that God actually is waiting to forgive us. All we have to do is ask. So number one, are you ready to ask for that grace? But number two, we have to show it to other people. Why should God show us grace if we're not showing it to other people, right? God loves each and every one of us. I think what we have to finish with is understanding that we're not going to be able to control everybody else. That is out of our control, and we have to be okay with whatever actions or thoughts or feelings other people are having, because we can't control that. But what we can control is our reactions. We can control our reactions where we can't control other people's actions. And so when your friend is getting on your last nerve, when your parents have had a long day and they are just yelling at you, or like just asking you to do chore after chore after chore, when your teacher, who definitely dislikes you more than other students, is just giving you bad grades and always on your case, how can we show grace? How can we choose our reactions, showing grace and actually trying to understand a little bit about where they're at? And that's the second part. We want to show grace, and that leads us to empathy. Empathy is almost where we understand a little bit more about what other people are going through. We understand that there's more than meets the eye with whatever is going on with them. And so if they're angry, if they're sad, if they're frustrated, if they're taking it out on us, and if we're just in a place where we're like, man, I would love to not show some grace right now, empathy is saying, figure out why they're acting this way. Empathy is saying there is a reason. They are people, they are loved by God. How can you put yourself in their shoes and understand a little bit more about what they're going through? And I feel like if we treated everyone with that love and with grace and had empathy, I feel like the world would be a lot nicer of a place. And I know you've seen it. You've seen people treat other people not with empathy, not with grace. You've seen people treat other people very harshly and aggressively and angrily. And that's what the world is telling you is okay, to just continue to butt heads. But let's all just take a step back and recognize that we have a God who consistently gives us grace, who consistently gives us second chances. So why can't we do that for other people as well? So this week, how are you gonna choose to respond? How are you gonna choose to respond to situations? Things that come up that could anger you, could make you sad or happy or excited, whatever the emotion might be. How are you gonna choose to respond when it could be negative? Are you gonna show grace to those around you? Or are you just gonna have a super hard heart and just be angry and annoyed and why do they always do that? How are you gonna respond? I would love if all of us could choose grace. Thanks for letting me be here with you guys. Have a great time in groups.